Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the Circling Seattle Sports podcast. This is the 152nd episode of the show itself and the 46th installment in the Seattle interview series. Today, I'm joined by, you prefer Jess, or you want me to go Jessika?
Jess is perfect.
Go Jess Cowart, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Good to go. All right. Jess Cowart here with me, UW women's soccer alumni, now currently playing pro ball over in Turkey. 2018 Pac-12 All Academic Honorable Mention, 2019 Husky Invitational Defensive MVP. And then in the spring season of 2021, another Pac-12 academic honor roll. I mean, just to go back to the Turkey part, I mean, you talked about it a little bit before we jumped on here. Before we get into the actual soccer aspect of it, how has Turkey been, just as a place that you're living currently?
Oh man, Turkey has been so kind to me. I'm currently living in Rize, and it's kind of like a mountainous town on the east coast of Turkey. And we live right on the Black Sea, and everyone here has been so welcoming, and they have such a big soccer community here, and everyone loves that we finally have a women's team for this club. So they've just been so kind and so welcoming, and have done their very best to make it feel like home. And Turkey is so beautiful. I've never seen really anything like it. It's just so different, and I'm glad to be here. I'm really happy I'm here. So
Well, I'm certainly interested to deep dive a little bit more into that when we get to it. But to kick off with the earlier years, what was your first real introduction to the game of soccer? How did that come into play for you? Was it, being encouraged to play the sport by a family member, looking up to somebody that played the game? Was it something that just get you out of the house? How did that come into play?
Well, my parents were kind of having me do a bunch of different sports when I was young. They had me try ballet, and my feet were a little too heavy for ballet. So they said no to that. And then they switched to soccer because I was just always a really energetic kid. And they're like, all right, it's an outside sport. She gets to run around a lot. So they kind of enrolled me in the AYSO program back in my hometown. And from there, it just kind of I just loved it from day one. A ball was involved. All my friends were there. And so I just picked it up really quick. And, you know, that's where my love started.
It is always interesting because doing a couple of these UW soccer interviews the last week, just hearing that, yeah, we just had a lot of energy, had to get me out of the house is kind of where people began that journey. So we moved from that step to club soccer. How would you say that your time playing club soccer shaped you to be the player that you eventually would become? I talked to a few people now who have said, not only club soccer, but, club sports is kind of like a jumping point if you eventually want to reach the college and then eventual pro level. Obviously, that's not for everybody, but how did your time in club soccer with, I believe it was a Palo Alto club, really jettison you to who you are as a player?
Yeah. The Palo Alto club was actually my last club, but I started in a smaller club in San Mateo, and they weren't too brand new, but they were kind of like the newest club. And it's funny, like the coach there, the director saw me at like an AYSO game, and they're like, look, she has a lot of potential, just put her in the club, see how she likes it. My parents were like, I don't know, like an organized thing like that, like a competitive thing, will she really do it? And thank God they said, let's just try it, because I would not be here today, obviously. But I would say like my club years at every club I've been at have been the best years of my life. Like where I learned, that's where I learned how to play soccer. And that's where the mindset came in. That's where I met, all my closest friends. But I would say like all my club coaches have taught me both life and soccer lessons. That really, all of them fostered an environment that was like, look, this is so competitive that it will make you want to play after club. This will it'll make you love soccer so much that you can't even think about stopping after club. So that's how I grew up, and that's like the environment I was in from 8 years old to freshman year of college. that's just the type of environments I was in. So I'll always thank my club coaches and the clubs that I was a part of before college.
It is interesting, with you now, adding to that to see, the club level success and then eventually taking that to the pro level. It is interesting to see that sort of pipeline there. As just like I wouldn't say, I guess it's completely and everybody that goes pro, but it's like a pretty consistent stepping stone. It's just interesting to see how that is involved in some people's journeys. And then so with the club level, and you talk about, competition, being competitive, you had some rankings when you were at the high school sort of level, top drawer IMG Academy, top 150 player, ranked 14th in Northern California and Hawaii by Top Drawer Soccer. Do you, as someone at that age, I mean, did you ever think about the rankings that you were getting? Did you see any of that? Or did you ever just kind of push that out, didn't really care about it, not any of your concern?
I didn't even really know about those rankings until I had to make a bio for the UW page my freshman year.
Wow.
So in club, like when those things were happening, for me, it's never really been about the rankings for me in any stage of my soccer career. Even college, it's always just been about play good soccer, help the team out, be the best player and teammate you can. And so at that age, 16, 17 for me, I wasn't like, scrolling through Top Drawer Soccer trying to see my name on the list or anything. And my parents really never even brought it up either. I don't know if they knew. I don't even think they knew. But if I had known, I'd like to think, and I do think I would have used it more for fuel to keep myself there and push myself further. But I would say rankings have never been like, unless it like mattered, like to get into the tournament or to, something like that. Rankings haven't been my top priority. It's always just been about being the best, trying my hardest, and giving everything I have for the people around me.
And so, moving into that, just kind of working, and you talk about not having to do that until making a bio. How was your recruiting process? How did you end up at Washington? Did you almost end up at another school? How did that fall into place for you to end up as a Husky?
Yeah. Well, to kind of take you through my decision making, I knew I wanted to stay relatively like on the West Coast, like close to my parents, but not like too close. I remember that was like a thing for me. I don't know why. But I also knew I wanted to play in the Pac-12 because I was like, this is one of, if not the most competitive conference for soccer. If you think about the colleges that are in that conference, I mean, like hands down, just amazing soccer being played. So I knew Pac-12 I wanted to play in. I had a couple of other schools that I'd taken unofficials on, like on the East Coast, that I was interested in. But my club coach at the time had two other players that he had helped get into or like get introduced to UW. And so he was like, look, just like take an unofficial, go see the campus, go meet the coach. Like, I'm sure you'll love it. And so I went up there with my dad, and we were flying over Washington, and I look out the window and it's like green. And coming from Northern California, when you fly out of San Francisco, it's like kind of brown, kind of buildings. And seeing that, I was like, wow, like there's trees here and there's like life here. And I just fell in love like everyone does when they take a visit to Washington and they look at Drumheller, and it's like a perfect clear day, like sun's out, people are walking around, cherry blossoms all over the place. And I was like, this is amazing. But like that beautiful campus location, I love the coach, I love the players, and I had known some already. And I don't know, it was just, and the soccer, the Pac-12, everything was like lined up perfectly. It was like the stars were aligning, and I was like, where was Washington this whole time? Like on my list, I would have gone here first for my unofficial. But and like it was like the craziest. My unofficial was the craziest experience because all the girls, like when we had come together, I had played soccer with everyone except Maria, in my class. So I had known everybody, like Kayleen, Olo, Amira, Caitlin. I didn't know Sienna, or Maria, but like I had played soccer with them. So I was like, this could not be any more perfect. Like I know everyone I'm coming in with. I love the campus. I love the coach. I love the soccer. So everything just kind of lined up, and I was like, this is where I want to be.
That is really funny to hear how that all kind of lined up, and what you touched on there with your class. That's never really heard something like that. That is really cool to hear how that kind of fell into place.
Right.
You talked about the Pac-12 and the schools in that conference in terms of the soccer. With that being said, and coming into Washington, as well as you talk about your class, what was your approach to your freshman year? Were you just kind of looking to make a mark? Were you looking to take things up, from maybe some of the older girls and just kind of take that year in? You scored in your first career game there. I think it was against Michigan State, and made 8 appearances on the year. How did you step into that first year, as a player?
So I knew coming in the competitiveness of the conference was top notch. I grew up watching Stanford, like literally sitting behind the goal outside of the fence before they put the big NCAA fence up. Like with my dad, I watched almost every home game. And so coming in, I knew it was just going to be hardcore. And obviously as a freshman, you want to go in there and make your mark, kind of like put your stamp on it. But I will admit I did not come in as fit as I had wished. So knowing that, I was like, look, the minutes I get, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to learn everything I can from the older girls. I had a great senior group to learn from. And there were so many of them that I could just pick all of their brains, and, they were great players too. So it was fun to watch. And then when I did get on the field, they were all so helpful. And they also just wanted me to play the best that I could. And they were always there to support me. So that's kind of that was my mindset going into freshman year. But I kind of just told myself, look, with the minutes you get, play your hardest, like make an impact on the game. Whether it's, defend as hard as you can for 10 minutes at the end of the first half, or, score a goal, do what you can to make your mark.
So you talk about the defending part, and that's a good segue again. And I could be wrong on the exact years here. It could be a year back from what this time period I've got here. But you were part of 14 shutouts over the course of 37 games from, I believe it was a 19 to 20 seasons. How important was that defensive aspect of your game to who you are as a player? I mean, you talk about, getting on the field and making your mark. Did you see that as a place potentially to say, hey, I'm going to stick my foot in the ground and I'm going to make a name for myself on this team? Or was it just something that, you worked on, just being a defensive player, helping out on the defensive side of the field?
Well, I think that's a good question, because in club, I played mainly the 8 and 10. So I played attacking mid. So I was always like in the attack by the goal scoring. And then kind of towards the end of my club career, I was a 6. So I was like defending a lot, doing all the hard work. And I came to just love defending. And for me, the adrenaline came from like making a huge tackle, turning it into an attack. And then we're like up by their goal all of a sudden. Like that's where like all my hype came from. I was just like, yes, we did that. Like, look at this Pac-12 network. Like you got that big play. So it, defending is such a mindset, and it's not for everybody. Most people probably don't like defending, and that's very understandable. But for me, like in terms of competitiveness, like that's where you show like how competitive you are. Like you either make or break the tackle, and if you don't, then you go back and you get it. And so I think like for me, defending became really fun. And so that's why when I think about like making my mark, like that's where it comes from, is like being solid for your team, like not letting anything get by you, and like contributing that way. Especially like last season when I played center back, it was like such a big part of like my on-field identity, like defending hard, that it became fun for me. So yeah.
it's as someone who played defender for the good amount of time that I played the game of soccer, what you talked about with making the big, it's exactly how I was. It was like, that is the most fun that I could have. Obviously, scoring is great, but that was not my forte. So being on that back line, doing what I could to help, that would perfectly described it. So keeping with the defensive sort of theme of things, I touched on it first when I introduced you. Did winning the 2019 Husky Invitational Defensive MVP have any sort of meaning, or was it sort of a recognition of the work that you were putting in? You talk about, the competitiveness, of if you lose a ball, coming back and getting it. Did that award, I mean, obviously I'm sure it meant something, but how did you look at that award, when you won it?
I think I remember being shocked. I was like, wow, really me? Especially because midfielders don't really get that award, like ever. But for me, it was kind of like, hey, look, like you're doing the right thing. Like even if it feels like you're doing something wrong, or you're working harder than you feel like you should be, or whatever it may be, like you're clearly doing something right. So you just got to keep doing it. And it meant a lot because I was like, wow, like I'm contributing, like I really am. Especially at the sixth position, it's like hard to tell, like you're in the middle. So it's like, okay, like, am I doing well on either side of the ball? Like, I don't know. So getting that award and like having all my team there for it was like, it was awesome. But definitely like, it really helped me like understand like, hey, if you're not like, even if no one's telling you you're doing right or wrong, you're doing something right. So just work hard, keep working hard.
So, we talk about, the defensive aspect of things, and it seems like a pretty solid run there. But with the injury in the spring of the 2021 season, that sort of weird, odd COVID season and all that, with how that took place, how did you approach that season as someone who like, couldn't necessarily impact with your on the field play? I mean, is it helping out with film study? Is it just kind of helping as if you were a team assistant? How did that look for you? Because I'm sure it must have been a wee bit difficult, because you want to be out there, you want to be on the field, you want to be actually playing the game, and can't really do that outside of, I'm sure, maybe like rehabbing or trying to get back into it. So how did you approach that, sort of odd spring season?
Right. Yeah, it was super difficult. Obviously, like no one wants to sit out of a game. And it was even harder knowing that like I couldn't do it. Obviously, like you said, I couldn't do anything about it. Like I couldn't like run harder, train harder, like do anything like that. So that made it like worse. But I had like the best support system at Washington. I mean, like I couldn't ask for better people to have around me. The coaching staff, like I don't know what I would have done without them, because I had just like me and a cohort of other girls just have been named captain, like the captain group. And so I was like, okay, like let's go, like this is like the year, let's do it. And I was like, all right, like I'm gonna be on the sideline kind of sitting out watching this thing play out. But the coaching staff and like the other captains really gave like me a new role to have, and it was just like be the support, like for anything and anybody. Like if people who aren't playing a lot of minutes are having a hard time, be there for them and give them like insight as to why like things might not be going their way. If people are on the field and they're having a crappy game and they don't know why, give them support and give them something to fix, one thing to fix, give them hope for the second half. So it was difficult at first because I was like, oh, like I just want to be out there to help them, like physically. But as the season went on, it was like exciting to like, okay, when like Summer comes off, I'm gonna tell her like, hey, you can turn, like you can turn and play the other side, or like, and it became like a relationship where like I didn't have to go up to her or anybody on the field to say something. They would come to me sometimes and be like, what are you seeing out there? Like, how can I, in the second half, how can we do this, this, and this? And it would be like a collaboration. Like when Shay unfortunately got injured at the Utah game, it'd be us two on the sidelines. And then like, we'd be with the coaches like, hey, like, what about this? Like, what do you think about this? So it became a role of like a support role and a support system. And also just like I felt like a hype woman too. Like I was just like, yeah, like go, go, go. And it was like, it was a new role, but it gave new meaning to like a captaining role. Cause like when you're the captain, it's like a lot of people feel like that role is just like dictatorship, like, you do this, 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 this. I'm like the top person, blah, blah, blah. But the coaching staff, like Nicole and Tina, and they really gave like new meaning to it. Like, hey, you have to be like the bridge between us and the team. And you also like, you have to be there for them. Like, there's no hierarchy here. Like, we're a team. Like, we're all on the same playing field. We're like all sisters, we're a family. And so like anything you can contribute is good contribution. Like, and it's going to be beneficial to the team. And so, you know, I had to take it in stride, and it became like one of my favorite roles to play. And I wouldn't take that season back for anything. Even though I couldn't play, I learned a lot being, you know, having that role. So I'm really grateful for it.
It is always cool to hear that, you know, players stay involved with their team if they're injured, you know, because I'm sure some people, it's like, hey, I'm injured. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to take it off, you know. So
Right.
It is really cool to hear that. And to have, you know, a player's set of eyes on the sideline, you know, if you're a player, hey, like you were talking about, what are you seeing? What am I not doing right? That sounds like it would definitely be really helpful, and it definitely adds a level to the coaching staff as well, like you were talking about. And you've already touched on some of these girls, and played with a couple of them. But I mean, as someone I talked about it before we started, but it's been really cool to have like Olivia Sakani on, Amira, Olo. I mean, what can you say about some of those players? You know, just being able to have them on has been great. But I mean, as someone who knows them on a more personal level, I mean, what do you say about them? You know, two of them now playing pro, Olivia back this year with this year's group. What do you sort of think about those players, and how do you reminisce on them?
I couldn't say enough about them. I mean, they're my sisters, they're my family. Like, I've known Amira and Olo for like literally as long as I can remember. Like, those are the girls that I had known way before UW. Like, we had played soccer before UW, and they're from Washington. Like, it's crazy. So like it was weird, like this year, like not like coming to practice and being like, oh hey guys. So like, and I miss them. I miss all of them so much. But I mean, Liv Sakani going back, man, like UW could not be luckier to have her coming back for this next season. I mean, what a star she is. And her energy, I just unmatched. I love her so much. I'm so glad she came to UW. She just adds another dimension of like intensity and competitiveness, but also like knowing the right time to be like, okay guys, like lighten up, like it's gonna be okay. So I love her, and they're so lucky to have her back. I mean, she's amazing. Great goalkeeper. I mean, it was so hard to score on her at practice. I get like angry at her sometimes. I'd be like, Liv, just let that in so we can like end this game. Like you're taking it too far. But man, she's amazing. Amira is like my freaking sister. Like, we called ourselves the twins like when we were there. She's like, we go way back. This girl I could not say enough about. I love her so much. And it was amazing being able to play with her for another 4 years. She's a great player, just works hard, and good soccer IQ, and she's a silent leader. She leads on the field with her voice and off the field, but she works really hard, and it's all you can really ask for. And she's a great friend and a great person to be around, and I love her so much. It's like so crazy like talking about these people, because like I like expect to walk out the door and like see them, but like that just doesn't happen. So it's like nice to reminisce though, because like those were such good years with them. Like Olo, like I mean, she's so cool. Like, what a cool person. She doesn't even know it. Like, she like doesn't even know that she's super cool. But man, that's a good player too. Like, she's unreal, and like she just doesn't get tired. And it's like it bothers me sometimes, because I'm like, okay, like you have to be a little tired, Olo. Like, come on, like admit it. But this year, her being drafted, man, like it was so exciting. I was like waiting for her. I was like, come on, like Olo, and for her to stay in Seattle, like that's amazing. She's so well deserved, and she's so good too. Like, she's so humble and like nice, and it's like oh, love, come on. Like, like you could say you did good that game, like, because you did really well. But I mean, this stats are off the chart for her too. I mean, played the most games in UW history. Like, are you kidding me? She's amazing. And like the girls, I'm so excited for this fall too, to watch them and be able to like see the group again and like see the class under me play for like the last season. And it's going to be so exciting, just like being back at Husky Stadium in the stands and like cheering on my friends. So I'm really excited for this fall too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about those three, but with Olo, I remember watching the draft, and I had the indication that Summer was going to be in it. So I was like, okay, let's see where Summer goes. And I remember, I think it was that last game of regular season against Washington State. I mean, I don't know how much you have seen Laura Harvey on sidelines, but seeing the like typical jacket and the stance that she has, I'm like, that's Laura Harvey. Why is she here? And so I was kind of curious about that. And I remember because the rain gave me my start in writing. So I was at that press conference they had when they announced they were going back to, well, not back to, but they were going to Lumen. And I asked her after, I was like, so I saw you at that UW game. Are you looking at someone in particular? And she said, I am, but I can't tell you. I was like, I know. And so I had the indication that it would be Summer. I had no idea that Olo was even entering the draft. And talking to her, it was funny to hear about how that all fell into place. But yes, ending up with the rain was, I mean, as a Husky and someone who covers the rain, obviously biased. So I really enjoyed that. And to see her sign that contract was really cool. So, I mean, especially in the midfield, I'm sure, as a midfielder, to have who she's got on that team to learn from is incredible, so that's a really cool situation. And the other two, I mean, Amira was great to speak with. It sucks because, I mean, would like to be able to reach out, but, being in Iceland, it's kind of tough doing that. But we had a great talk. And Liv too, especially. We did our first in-studio interview here in Seattle that we've done, trying to get those back in again, but obviously with everything that's happening, kind of tough. And she's been like a friend too. And Olo, like you were talking about, incredibly, it's like, it's almost like you knew her for a while. And I don't, I'm just sitting here doing these things. So those three I cannot say more about, and I don't even know them as well as you do, but you talked about Summer, and I'm intrigued. As someone who knew her, right? What were your thoughts on her returning to this team this year as opposed to potentially entering the draft? Because I know that was something that I think she could have done, but she opted to not do. I mean, do you have thoughts on that? And obviously you'd up getting a player of her caliber back this season, with this group of, some returning faces, but also some newer ones.
Yeah. I mean, I love Summer. She's like a little sister to me. I call her Nugget because she's just a little small girl from the countryside. But I think I love the decision. I love her going back. I mean, she is such a vital part of the team, no matter who's on the field. She just brings that. She gives us confidence, right? She's on the ball, and we're just like, okay, something's going to happen. Summer has the ball. So I love that she's going back for another season, for last season. Obviously, I'm sure she would have been drafted really high had she entered this past draft. But, it just gives her more time to refine her game, to, learn a little bit more and, get some really good competitive games in against girls she'll be playing with and against in the NWSL. So I think it's a great decision. And obviously UW very, very lucky to have her back. I think she'll do some amazing stuff this next fall. I can't wait to watch her. But yeah, I think it could have gone. I think it could have gone either way. I also thought she was entering. But after talking to her, I was like, okay, like, yeah, let's do it. Go back one more year and, strut your stuff and, end with a bang. So I'm really happy she's going back, and I really can't wait to see her before she gets a little too famous for me.
Well, I mean, I guess you'll always have her nickname that you have for her.
Yes.
But, you talk about that as well as, you playing pro, about the other two that we've talked about playing pro, and Amira and Olo, and just on the men's side of it too, with the guys that they had to go to the MLS this season. and this is just these past 2 seasons. I mean, we talked about Tina and her success as a Husky, right? And what she's doing now as a coach. I mean, do you have any thoughts that you'd want to share on the programs that we have for soccer here at UW? Not only the teams, and their efforts. I mean, the men's team making the national title game last season, the run that you guys had, I believe it was 2 years now. Well, it was like 2021 spring, right? Just weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Throws me off.
Yeah.
But also the players that go on to play like you that have played professionally. Do you have any like reflection on that, on the soccer programs?
I mean, the players going pro could not speak enough for themselves, right? Like, I mean, the men's team this year. I mean, the players they sent to MLS, amazing. Like, it was so fun watching them play. I'm so happy for them, so proud of them. And I'm not surprised either. I mean, they're great group of players, and I like cannot I'm gonna try and watch some of the games here. I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna try my hardest. And obviously, like, our team sending 3 players to play pro this past spring, and then more to come in the next year. And like you said, Tina being Tina, I mean, it's on both sides too. I mean, UW fosters such like great people and great players, and it's crazy. A lot of people say like in college it's not really about development, but that's not true. Like at UW, like I became such like a different player than I was in club, or in such like a smarter player, and like I learned so much from the coaches I've had here. And I remember in club, like a lot of people were like, yeah, you might not like learn enough or learn a lot, like it's only 4 years. And like at the end of it, like looking back, like that's just so not true. And I'm sure like Amir and Ola would say the same. Like we've learned so much from the coaches we've had, and like on the men's side too. um, just how to hold yourself as a player off the field, and like how to be there for your community, but also on the field, how to just be a good teammate, how to work hard, how to play good soccer, um, how to be good at decision making and multitask and blah blah blah. The list goes on about the things that I've learned here and or at UW. And there's too much to say about the program, and how well they develop you and make you into a professional player, even at the collegiate level. You learn how to be that at UW.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the guys that they sent on the men's side. It has been really cool to talk to players on both men's and women's team, and talking to Charlie last season, talking to Dylan lately and his incredible run that he had. I talked with Olo. I would like, as a biased fan, I would like for Huskies to end up in Seattle. I know that I was hoping that Charlie would have ended up here, but now with Chicago. I mean, it was incredible though to see that draft day, both the NWSL draft day and see the Olo end up here, but to see the MLS and to see those group of guys that were obviously watching the draft together, but to see how many guys ended up in the league is really great. And I know that both teams have spring seasons coming up, so I'm excited to just get back out there, because that was a lot of fun. Going out for your guys' season, and then being able to cover some of those playoff games here in Seattle for the men's team. Just got to get it back. I mean, soccer was, I think, my second love, so it's something that it's always a lot of fun to look at.
Yeah.
So to take the UW part and to move on from that, we go to pro now. So, being a pro player, I'm sure it's very important to have, to be managed, get the right group. How did you end up with Upper V? Was that something that you looked into yourself? Did they reach out to you? How did that come into play?
Well, I had a lot of help from former players and former teammates at UW. So a lot of girls that are playing pro now, like Amanda Perez, Shannon Simon, Dawn Bonflaza, like they, obviously have been through the ringer with it. And so I kind of had 2 options, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to reach out to both. And I really liked Lenny, and like I liked the teams that he was sending his players, and the way he managed it, and kind of like his communication style, and all of it keeping me in the loop. And so I decided to go with Upper V. But I had a lot of help, and I had a lot of help from Nicole and Tina too with my highlight video, my player profile, like learning what to expect and like timing of everything. So I had a lot of help around me, which I'm grateful for. I'm not sure I would have been able to make it if I was alone. So, you know, they really helped me out with the process and how to like reach out to agents and how to contact them and kind of what to say, what you're looking for, type of thing. And then obviously again with my former teammates, I had a lot of help from them and what to expect. So yeah, my support system was great.
So how soon, I mean, you talk about obviously you getting represented. How soon after UW did you start putting your name out there for teams, or was that something that management did, or did that even begin while you were technically still at UW? How did that ultimately come into play? And then how did your new team come into play?
So that's a great question. I took a week after the last game to kind of let the last 4 years, five years, kind of like digest and reflect on it and like appreciate it. And then after that, I was like, all right, I had my highlight video ready. That was done. And then I had obviously Nicole and Tina helped me out with my player profile. So once that was done, I sent them out to agents. And then once I had Upper V representing me, they kind of like took the reins on sending my profile out and my videos out to teams. And then like the way I got here was like super quick. It was like in the middle of February, and my agent was like, "Hey, I've got a team in Turkey. They really want you. Like, are you willing? Like, do you want to go?" And I was like, I talked to my parents, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." And they're like, "Great, they want you tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not even like remotely packed yet." Like, I hadn't even like whoa. So he was like, "Yeah." I said, like the earliest you can go is like 2 days from now, and they're like, because they wanted me to play in I want to say it was a Wednesday. They wanted me to go on Thursday because their first game was Friday or Sunday. And I was like, whoa. So like the timeline was like super short on when I would first be playing. So I ended up being able to get there on Thursday, and then I practiced with the team Friday, Saturday. But I didn't get my license for the Turkish Football Federation in time for the game on Sunday anyway. But it gave me another week to train with the team, which was nice. But yeah, it all happened. It felt like a long process to get here, like from the end of college to now. It felt like a long process, but when I look back on it, like it was pretty short. Like the amount of time I was out of college soccer, and like when I started here in Rize, like it was short. So yeah, I'm really thankful for my agency and for my representation. They did, I mean, amazing. So yeah.
It's just not much of an off season, huh?
Guess not, but honestly, I like the go of it. I love soccer, so I don't really like taking a lot of time off of like playing or being on a team. I realize that like being on a team is like what I love the most about it. So like training on my own is like great and everything, but like I'd rather be at like practice with the team. So I'm not necessarily mad the off season was short. But I am grateful for it. Like I got a lot of time to like, you know, obviously again, like reflect on my collegiate career and then get ready for pro.
So you talked about, you know, just being able to see parts of Turkey, you know, and having it be something that you've never really seen before. What can you say about the Turkish level of soccer to this point that you've played? Is it a lot different than, you know, playing here well, at least in the Pac-12 level? Are you seeing similarities? How's the soccer aspect of it so far?
Right. It's definitely different. Different than any other soccer I would say I've played before. It's different from American soccer, where American soccer is a lot about like being athletic, right? And like being fit and able to, you know, just like go. So here it's like a lot about just like finding the options, being calm about it, like passing around type of thing. And we're still like gelling as a group a little bit, but recently we've been playing really good soccer. And so that's like exciting. Getting to know like everyone on the team and like their tendencies on the field has been great, especially like with the language barrier. It's actually been super smooth sailing getting kind of in the groove of like soccer here. But it's definitely different, different styles for sure, different, both coaching and playing styles. It's different. And I mean, living like I'm in a hotel with like the whole team. Like we have one floor in this like living facility, and so like that's also different. Like I've never done that before, but it gives me a chance to like get to know everyone on the team. So the environment and the soccer and like kind of everything's different. But I love it. It's like it's been such a great experience so far, and I'm still learning, which is the best part of it. Still learning a lot of new things, and like kind of just like taking it all in. It's been really fun playing in the games and like seeing the fanfare we have and the excitement that the city gets from like a win. That's been awesome. And then my roommate and I, she's also from America, so that's nice having her. We just took a trip to Istanbul for a couple of days, and like it was cool over there. It was like it's just been super fun, like being able to explore and kind of like be in the culture and like learn new things, learn new language. It's been super fun, and to play soccer throughout it all has been the best part, definitely.
So with that being said, I mean, you could definitely not be thinking about this right now. You're probably, taking it a game at a time, but do you plan on, staying in Turkey for a bit, or do you potentially want to play somewhere else? I know that I spoke with Adrienne Jordan, who played some Challenge Cup in, I believe it was 2020 with the Rain, and she's a German-born player, and her goal was always to get to Germany and play pro at that level. Are you thinking outside of this, or are you like, hey, I'm with my current club and I'm not looking past it until something I need to look past it, I guess?
Right. I mean, before I came, I definitely had like plans for the future, but I think like being here and being with the team and like playing, I'm definitely taking it game by game, because I don't know what will happen in the future, but I love it here, and so like that's a factor for me that I will have to take in. Like I love this team and I love being a part of it, and I love playing here. So that's what's stopped me from kind of looking past this season. I want to play, hard for the rest of the season. And, we have a game on Sunday that I'm really gearing up for. It's a big one. It's our Classico, our rivalry. So, I'm not really looking past that game. But I mean, definitely the future is something that I'll have to think about at the end of season, but I've loved playing here so far. So it's going to, that's kind of where I'm headed. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what'll happen, but that's a good question. I probably should start thinking about that, but I just haven't.
I mean, it's not bad to be in the moment, right? But it is interesting just to sort of like with Adrienne's decision. Just I think she played in the same club that Amira's on right now. So that was kind of cool because I did those interviews in the same day. I was like, oh, a little connection there. But also just at the same time playing the pro level, I know that what she said that, you got to visit some amazing places while playing soccer. Like you were saying, playing soccer in this place, learning the language and all that. I want to wrap up with some off the field stuff. How did you get involved with or start working with LVR Soccer and the Austin Everett Foundation? How did that come into play?
Those two foundations I love. I mean, Austin Everett, I just think that's like one of my favorite organizations to volunteer for while I was in Seattle. And LVR, I mean, the kids that were at those events were so cute, and they were so into it and so excited to have us there. But I got connected with those two through UW Soccer as like kind of a community-based thing, just to get us out there like involved with the community. And I'm so thankful for that, because the people I've met, I mean, the founder of Austin Everett Foundation, like what a sweetheart. I love her so much. And I mean, that was one of my favorite things to go to, was that event. And we'd watch we'd watch the big games with them and play games and like do fake tattoos and just interact with them. And so those two are really good to get into. And, you know, I got connected with them through UW, which is another, amazing part of being on that team, was just being able to get into the community and kind of like connect with them and thank them for all they've done for us.
And so then to step back with Turkey, so you talked a little bit about being able to explore. What does a off day look like for you? I don't know how much you have to train. I don't know, when you get that chance to have an off day, but I guess in your off time, are you trying to explore a little bit more? Are you looking for different places to eat? Are you looking for historical stuff? What does an off day look like for Jess when she gets that time?
Yeah. So an off day typically looks like going like into town, because like we're like literally on the Black Sea. Like, my room like looks out onto the Black Sea. And so like an off day kind of looks like going into town, going to like the big shopping center, where kind of like everyone goes, and like just walking around there. There's some super, super good food in Turkey, in Rize specifically. The food here is just, it's unmatched. Like I can't even tell you how good it is. Like I remember coming here, the first dinner I had, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like I'm gonna be here? Like I love it. So going there, and just like my roommate and I just like happened to stumble into one of these like kebab shops, and the owner was like the biggest, like a huge fan of Rizespor. So like it was like, it's so amazing. Like you kind of have to do that, right? You have to like get into the community, because like they love the team, and like they love when players come in and get to talk to you. And like even if we don't understand them as much and we have to use Google Translate, like it's still so cool, like going in there and them recognizing like the logo on your puffy or on your mask. Like it's so cool getting out, like going outside and into the town, and everyone's like, oh my god, like she's on Rizespor, she's on Rizespor. So that's always been super cool. And I've met some really great people just like exploring and like walking around. So that's like been one of the best parts about being here, is just getting out there and like seeing Turkey. Because I've never thought about traveling here. And now that I get to play soccer here, like just have to take it all in and make like an experience of it, really.
It is really cool to hear about those experiences with players, playing the game overseas. Just even in basketball, I think I talked to Jewel Lloyd about it, just the overall positive reaction you hear from the fans. Because obviously with women's sports here in the US, if you go to any of these comment sections, you can see other, this trash, right? But to see how the reception is, in the real world and outside of the States, where like you're saying, like you go and people recognize you and they love that, and they love seeing the team, and the reaction to having the women's team, like you said, for the club, right? It's really cool to hear that, because the support is there, and it's always been there. It's just I do enjoy hearing that, because I think with Amira as well, and Adrienne, and even on the basketball side of it with Jewel Lloyd, just hearing all that, that's good to know. Because it's, as someone who's a man covering these sports, I see the comments, the comments are there, but to know that outside of this little country, that in overseas and in the world out there, that there's obviously a positive reaction to it, is really cool to hear about. And to hear it from firsthand from someone who is experiencing it is even better, because it's not someone just making that up. That's what's actually happening.
Right.
I always put socials down in the description, just so people can be like, hey, I really like hearing about this person, let's go check them out. Do you have anything that you want to promote, put out there, anything you want to leave us with?
Well, my Instagram is Jess_Cowart. Like that's like the main place I post. And like obviously I'm posting about, I have like a story highlight of Turkey with a lot of cool food on there and sites I've seen. But yeah, and then obviously like it's tagged in my bio, the team Instagram. So that's always really cool to check out. That's where you can find most of like the game times and links if you ever want to watch me play. But yeah, that's kind of it. That's like literally all I post on. I don't really post on my Twitter, so I never link it. I only go on there for the laughs. But yeah.
Well, with that being said, I appreciate taking time out of your day. Obviously, got a big matchup coming up on Sunday, as you said, a rivalry game, and rivalry games are always fun. I know that. So with that being said, again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, and I wish you the best of luck. I'm excited to see you back at Husky Stadium when the girls get their season going again.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.